irritated, frustrated, all those. So what we work with leaders on first is, can you just name the primary colors? Like the 3 primary colors create all the colors. Can you just name the 5? And then if you want to start to segment and nuance, that's great. But can you name the 5 core feelings? And then the second part of emotional literacy, which is really, really important, is can you locate the feeling in the body? And remember, we define feeling or emotion as energy in motion, that all a feeling is, at least at the beginning, is a set of sensations in and on the body, which is really a good thing to understand. Usually there's a thought, that person shouldn't have cut me off in traffic. And then the thought produces a set of sensations in the body, anger. And so there's this relationship between the thought, the cognitive structure, and the emotive structure, cognitive emotive loop we talk about. We've written a lot about that. But the key to starting to become emotionally literate and then emotionally intelligent is, can you locate the feeling in the body? Can you describe the sensations? We like to say, imagine that your body is a bag of bits. Do you know what the bits are doing? Are they pulsing, twisting, popping? Are they heating up? Are they cold? What are the bits doing? Now, this is incredibly important, because as you start to move from emotional literacy, what is my feeling? Anger. Where is the anger in the body? What are the bits doing? Then you can start to move to emotional intelligence and emotional liberation, which is, can I just allow the body to do what it's doing? Can I just let the bits do what they're doing? Welcome them, and then actually support them by breathing. A lot of times when you're having feelings, especially big feelings, you'll stop breathing. So breathe, move, and vocalize. And here we're talking about move and vocalize to match the feeling. We're not trying to do anything other than, oh, anger's here. Where is it? It's in my fists. Okay, if you were to move your hands to match the energy, what would they do? Well, they would ball up in fists and they would hit a pillow. That's all we mean. Okay, great. And you're matching your expression with the body with the experience so that there's congruence and so that the energy can easily release. And this is where we quote Joe Bolte Taylor. Now, many, many others have seen this as well, that if you don't repress or suppress or block emotional flow, emotions will release out of the body in 90 seconds or less. Now, if you don't welcome the bits and flow and match with breath, movement, and expression, then the emotion can get stuck in the body, and it can calcify into a mood, and it can last for decades. So this is why when we start to talk about emotional intelligence, it's, can I start to be with emotions in such a way that they do what emotions are meant to do, which is give me life and give me wisdom. So that's the last piece of emotional intelligence, is can I learn from the emotion? And we say that the emotions are here to bring information. So there you go. Emotional literacy, emotional intelligence, and then the third category, which many of you I know and I have for years been playing with, what I would call emotional liberation. And emotional liberation is this: beginning to be with all emotions as a gift, so that I can start to, I'm going to say something extreme here just to provoke you all, I can actually start to enjoy sadness. I can delight in anger. I can experience fear and welcome it. I mean, welcome it, not just tolerate it. Because what you start to discover in emotional liberation is that these emotions are life force. They're the color. So many of us live life cut off from our feelings. It's like living in black and white or living in gray tones. And when I start to open up to being a fully alive human, I'm feeling feelings all day long, and I can actually start to enjoy them. Now, think about that. Most people, if you say sad, angry, scared, joy, and sexual feelings, they say, I'll take the joy and the sexual feelings. Sexual feelings, maybe, maybe not. I'll take the joy, the happiness. But the negative emotions, anger, fear, and sadness, I don't want those. Well, I want to point you to a reality, which is the liberation of actually delighting in sadness, for example. So I ran from sadness much of my life. Now, when sadness shows up, usually as an ache in my chest, contraction in my throat, heat in the front of my face, and tears falling out of my eyes, I can sit in sadness and be so grateful for brokenheartedness. I don't need to run from it or resist it. I can enjoy sadness. I can delight in rage. I can rest in fear. And gang, so remember, stages: emotional literacy, emotional intelligence, emotional liberation. That is one of the portals to complete aliveness. So, okay, so that's kind of a few big ideas just to get our pumps primed. And Grace, as you hear me saying that, is anything coming up for you or anything you want to express? Or
Yeah, so I was thinking about congruence and emotional congruence. So we speak about that being like matching your inner experience to your outer expression, which is, you know, when you're maybe sharing or making sounds or letting the expression come out. But one of the most simple ways to start looking at congruence, and where people often miss, is facial expression congruence. So often you'll see someone who's just starting to learn about emotional intelligence, and they might be going like, I am so mad right now. And they're like smiling on top, or they might be sad and they're smiling, or like doing a different expression. And so that's one of the simple ways to start playing with is, can you just actually have your face reflect the experience that you're having inside so that it's the same? And that can often then be the simpler, it's like the bridge that then starts to link you up with, okay, so now if my face and my feelings are the same, now I can also start to maybe see if any verbal expression wants to be made, sound or movement. But that's a good place to get started and paying attention. And it's also a way where you can get feedback from other people, like your close people who know you. So if you are still learning to match that up, to have them give you feedback if they notice that you don't look like you're congruent, to just ask the question, boy, I just noticed your face doesn't look like it's what you're saying you're feeling right now, and give you that feedback.
that's great, Grace. It's actually a really important element in relationship and team dynamic. In other words, the people around you, because we have limbic systems, we're partly pack animals, our survival has depended upon being able to sense the feeling states of others. So when you're in the presence of another person and they're incongruent, for example, they're saying everything is okay, but you intuitively know they're angry, then they're an incongruent person and dangerous. When people are relationally, when they're internally incongruent, they become relationally dangerous. This is especially true of leaders who, let's say you had a horrible last quarter and you stand in front of your organization and you don't own that fear is here. You try to put a smiley face on it. This is one of the things that was taught about leadership. Leaders should never say that they're scared. I think that's utter bullshit. It's crazy talk, actually, because people around you can feel that you're scared. And if you say you're not scared, people go, now it's really scary. Missing our quarterly numbers was scary, but I'll tell you what's really scary. The leader has their head up their ass and won't admit that fear is here. Whereas I think in the emerging paradigm of leadership, a leader can say, hey, we missed our numbers. And I want you all to know that I have fear. And I'm being with my fear. I'm feeling my fear, and I'm learning from my fear, because fear is inviting me to wake up and pay attention. Here are the things I'm paying attention to. And then I think this is really transformational. And if you feel scared, you and your fear are welcome here. That creates an entirely different culture. When rifts occur, reduction in forces, and people are let go. And then a leader doesn't stand up and say, I just want you to know we just had a reduction in force and I feel sad. You know, a handful of people who left the company were with me from the beginning. And there's a real sense of loss here. If a leader doesn't get congruent and authenticate that, then again, they're not trustworthy. Leaders who can't feel fear lack knowing. Leaders who can't feel sadness lack a heart connection. Leaders who can't feel anger lack boundaries. Leaders who can't feel joy don't celebrate. And leaders who want to X out sexual energy lose creative force. So as leaders, we want to be congruent and line up so that everybody in our world will relax in their nervous system and trust. That's great. Okay.
One last thing I'll say, Jim, is you were talking about us expressing or being comfortable just expressing and enjoying expressing feelings. And for those of you who did not get good role modeling for healthy expression of feelings, you may need to take some time to create a new relationship with some of the feelings. So like for me, I was around a father who expressed a lot of anger below the line. There was a lot of blame and violence attached to the expression of anger. So when I started to be comfortable or allow some of my anger through, I had to go through the filter of finding what it was like to actually take responsibility for being angry. And what would that look like to express anger from above the line? And I had to make friends with that, because at first it was, for me, a scary feeling. Now, many of you may have different feelings where you don't feel like, I don't like that one, or I don't feel comfortable with that one, or I don't know how to express that one from above the line. So that's going to be a part of this work, is really like doing your own exploration about, are there any particular feelings that I have a tough time with, and finding some friendly ways to be able to start to express them and feel them.
Yeah, a fun practice is think back to your family of origin, whether you were raised by biological parents or adoptive or grandparents or wherever you were raised. Think about that environment and then just ask yourself the question, in that environment, was it okay to feel angry? And did I see people model anger? Was it okay to be sad? Was it okay to be scared? Was it okay to have joy? Joy is often one of the things that wasn't allowed. Mm-hmm. Don't be too big for your britches. The tallest poppy gets its head cut off. You know, if you have too much joy, you're just setting yourself up for the fall. Or was it okay to feel sexual feelings? Wow. And then you can say, no, in my family of origin, it was okay to be sad and it was okay to be angry, but you couldn't have joy and sexual feelings. Well, that'll be a good indication for you, just like Grace said, of where you're going to want to be gentle with yourself in developing some emotional literacy, intelligence, and liberation. Okay, shall we open it up for some sharing and Q&A and things like that, Erica? Can you start to see what's out there that wants to be explored?
Yes, absolutely. So, Jen, we've If you can unmute Jen, Laney Beth Laney. And I'll just,
Okay.
while you're, great, go ahead about personas and feelings.
Yeah, Jim, so awesome to be here. Saw you at 1440 and just really happy to be here. We did persona play, and I'm feeling this is in the same neighborhood, but how is it different going through the feelings and then persona play?
Good. All right, so first we better introduce everybody to what persona play is.
Oh,
We'll
I'm
get
sorry.
to personas, but personas are identities or masks that we all have. They're actually essential to our survival. They're essential to our functioning in the world. And we do a lot around getting to know our personas. A big part of what we do is what's called a persona interview. And then one of the things that we suggest and advocate and do is learning to play with personas. So the idea is, well, let me do this. Grace, what's one of your favorite personas?
Let's see, one of my favorite personas is one called Lucy, and she is very opinionated. She's not shy about being the center of attention. She kind of tells it like it is, and sometimes she has kind of a, I guess I'm not going to say the accent because I might do it badly, and I want to be politically correct right now. So yeah, Lucy. And she's gotten me in some trouble at times because she has, gotten in people's faces, but she's also gives me the ability to just blurt whatever I'm really thinking and give people direct feedback.
Yes, beautiful. So over the course of your life, there were times when unconsciously Lucy just showed up, and we say Lucy played you.
Yes, and I would get like suspended from school.
Yes. And now, over the years, you've learned to play Lucy. So literally, persona play is, I imagine there have been times when you take on Lucy, her posture, her accent, her clothing, and then you show up as Lucy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
She's got very clear, strong boundaries. And when I first met my husband, I had Lucy call him up because he wanted her to take a trip. And Lucy was very clear to let him know exactly what Grace needed if he was going to take her on this trip so early on in the relationship.
So persona play is getting to know a persona and then bringing the persona forward consciously so you can play the persona so the persona doesn't play you. Okay. Now, here's what you discover is these personas have a whole relationship to feelings. A whole relationship to feelings, some of which is occurring from below the line and some of which is above the line. By the way, we say this in the book, but it's really important. All 5 of the feelings can occur from below the line and above the line. People say, we say, where are you? They say, I'm below the line. How do you know? Well, I'm angry. Well, you can be angry above the line. So Grace, just tune in. Lucy, like what feeling states does she have a particular relationship with?
Definitely anger. She's very, but it's not, she has a very clean relationship to anger. Real easy to just, tell people what she thinks.
Yeah.
And what she like.
Yeah, she has good boundaries.
Yeah, very strong boundaries.
Yes, this, no, that. Stop this, start that.
Mm-hmm.
So Lucy, when Grace is knowing her, interviewing her, and playing her, can support Grace to develop a friendlier relationship with anger. Mm-hmm. So all of these personas can be used as on-ramps for greater emotional intelligence, greater emotional expression, and greater emotional liberation. So I'd say that so far, is that getting at what you were raising in the question, or is there something more specific you want around that?
No, that's awesome. I mean, and particularly the piece about that there's a whole cadre that comes with the persona, that's on deck, ready to go. And the
Yes.
clarification, yeah.
Well, let me illustrate again, and let me, jump a little bit into the fire. When we hold events, we often do persona parties. And one of the ways we invite people to discern what persona they want to play at that party, which is literally a dinner, and you come in persona, is we ask people, what are you Xing out is one thing to look at. What have you cut out of your life? And a great way to look at that is, what do you look out in the world and judge as wrong or bad? So for example, two polarities that people can come to a persona party in are prude, sexual prude, and whatever you want to call it, seductress, liberated sexual being, flirt, all right? So now they might come as provocateur, seductor, because they've X'd it out of their life and they hate it when they see it in the world. And they'll come and spend 45 minutes or an hour at a persona party and they go, wow, there's that sexual juice that I've been running from. And we do that in a friendly, safe way where there's debriefing after the party, because if you've repressed your sexual energy for years and now you're going to bring it back online, true with anger as well and fear and sadness, we really want to support you to bring it back online in a way that's friendly to you and friendly to the world. So personas often carry disowned energies. And if you welcome back in the persona, you get a friendly way to have access to an energy, an emotion, a feeling that you have cut yourself off from.
Well, how gorgeous is that?
Pretty gorgeous.
Yeah.
Woo. Thank you.
So we have several questions of the same variety. And so let's see. So Karina is asking, is there a handbook for friendly ways to express feelings? Cindy is saying, hey, can you model healthy above the line anger? And then someone else, Nadim, is asking about an example of sexual feelings. And I'm having the same. So this group wants to know, what does this look like to feel your feelings?
Oh, it's so great. Grace, do you want to say anything about it? Otherwise.
Well, I guess one thing, I'll just make a distinction. When you're below the line and expressing feelings, there's often, like Jim said, going to be this strong sort of story that's going through your mind that is actually perpetuating the feelings. So it might be like, God, that guy pissed me off so much. I can't believe he said that to me. And then we feel more angry and we kind of get pissed off a little bit, and then the story comes again, we remember what they said again, then we feel another flash of anger. So it's like this loop that goes between our mind and our feelings, our mind and our feelings, and it just keeps repeating. Versus when we're above the line, we lean in this direction of dropping the story. So we might have a feeling, become aware of the feeling, see if you can drop the story. Even if you think you know what's going on, drop it and just see if you can get into the experience of the energy of the emotion itself. So that's one strong distinction I want to make about the difference between when somebody said, what's healthy anger look like? Healthy anger is not going to be in a blame story. Healthy anger is probably going to be in either like saying, this is what I want, or I don't like this, or I want change around this. It's going to be, or it may at first just be purely expressing the anger, because often before we know what it's about, we're going to be in the experience of it. So it's much less cognitive when we're above the line in the beginning.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
No, keep going if you weren't complete yet.
Well, I guess one thing I want to say is that I feel like as I've been practicing this work for so many years and learning about my emotions, that I'm starting to really feel emotion like a gateway. It's a doorway. It's opening something it's opening us up to something in ourselves. And I think of the emotion as the energy that opens us. And that's really beautiful because the energy itself will open us. It's not what we think about what's happening. It's the energy itself will do the opening. So if you're sad and you're crying, there's something that may want to be happening with your heart, like it's opening or it's cracking or breaking. And the energy will just open you. And then later you may get more of your cognitive ideas about that. You may come to more clarity about something, but it's often going to be at first more of an energetic experience. And I really like to give people so much permission to not make sense. Like, don't think you have to make sense. People want to make sense so quickly around their emotions and understand them so quickly. Give yourself some time to just express and be in the feeling before you try to make sense out of it.
Yeah. Well, let me just stay with anger a little bit more. I want to punctuate what Grace said. So anger below the line is going to be judgmental. You're going to judge the person, circumstance, or condition. You're going to judge them as wrong, bad, inadequate, impolite, disrespectful. It's going to be judgmental. It's going to be righteous because you're going to be right about your judgment. It's going to be blaming and critical. So whenever, if I said to you, what are you feeling? And you said, I'm angry. And you said, and I'm angry because, she was rude to me. I guarantee you that's below the line. Now, the sensations are still in the body. Elevated heart rate, tightness in the jaw, tension in the back of the neck, the hackle zone, the anger zone. So the body is feeling the sensations of anger. And here's what's really important. But it's fused with the ego, the mind's righteousness that person shouldn't have done it. And if you express anger from that place, it's going to be blaming and critical, no matter how polite you try to be. You were rude to me, and I don't allow people to be rude to me. Well, that's going to have a certain experience for you. First of all, you'll never be free with that approach. And, it doesn't always lead to the highest quality relationships. Anger that's above the line often starts with a story. So I'll illustrate. Deb and I are in our cottage in Michigan, and we have a guy who's been a partner with us in doing work on our property for years. And Debbie and I have deep connection and love for him. And over the last 3 weeks, he's broken 3 agreements with me around when he would show up and what he would do. We had real clear agreements, commitment number 6, and he didn't keep them. So I got up last week and he hadn't done what he said he was going to do. And I had an immediate grrr sensation when I looked out and saw that the work wasn't complete. And immediately my mind went to, God darn it, he's just unreliable, judgmental, critical. I can't trust him to do what he's supposed to do. And anger, grr, okay? So below the line, yeah, everybody get that? I'm contracted, I'm below the line. So my first I released the energy out of my body, which actually it wasn't a big energy, so it just took a couple of breaths. Can I just let the body have its experience? And it did. Then, once the body was released and spacious, then I went back up to the thought and I questioned the thoughts. Is it true that he should keep his agreements with me? And I did commitment 10, seeing all the opposites of my story. And this just took a couple of minutes. And I was willing to see all the opposites of all those stories. So now the mind wasn't attached to being right, and the body was released. At that point, I sent him a text, which I believe was clean. It said, hey, called him by name. I noticed that I felt angry this morning. And that anger is inviting me to say to you that I want to have a conversation with you to see if you'd be willing to recommit to keeping your agreements with me. And if you're not, it's perfectly okay, perfectly all right if you're not willing to do that. If you're not willing to do that, then I want to end our professional relationship. So the anger was giving me a boundary, and believe me, he got the boundary, as evidenced by the ongoing conversation. And I didn't need to make him bad or wrong. I actually grant him the right to be with his agreements. However he wants to be with his agreements, it's totally up to him. I don't see him as bad or wrong. And over here in the world of Jim, Planet Jim, I don't have people in my life close up who don't keep their agreements because I find it just takes too much energy. So that's an example of where originally anger was below the line. I did a little work to release it from the body, just let it flow. I deconstructed the thought. And then from presence, I was available to the anger to set a boundary. So that would be an example, real live example of what I did last week. Sexual feelings. Somebody asked, what are sexual feelings? Again, remember,
Hey, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah, before you move on, I'm feeling called to give an example of what it looks like to feel anger when it might take more than just a few breaths, like your experience. So people a felt sense of that.
Great.
Because I know anger can feel really big sometimes. And I just want to invite everybody to actually bring something to mind that you feel anger around. It could have happened this morning, it could have happened yesterday, it could happen 10 years ago, but just whatever comes to you, and feel in your body what the sensations are. Like had Jim mentioned, there might be a feeling in the back of your head or tightness. There might be heat. See how it feels in your body? And it's pretty easy. Just think of something that I have a no to, that I have a hell no to. And that comes up throughout the day. How do you deal with that? Sometimes, like Jim says, it's a few breaths and it's like the anger moves through. Sometimes I need a minute outside by myself. And for me, and then you allow yourself to intensify the feeling in the body. I feel heat, I feel tightness. And so I go into that. What is that about? What is it? And there's shaking and there's tightening. And then there's often really loud sound like, no, 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 ah, no. Until it moves through.
Yeah.
Sometimes a few breaths, sometimes more. That was a pretty mild version for me. If I'm real, like it can, but up to 90 seconds, sometimes 10, sometimes a minute. If you allow it to move through the way that it wants to move through, you lean in instead of away. Can't think yourself above the line. You can't will it. And then it's like, okay, I'm ready to have that conversation that Jim mentioned. I was angry. This is what I learned. I want to take responsibility for this. Let's talk. And I can come with, I have my clear boundaries now, my clear yeses and nos. I want to know what's up for you. Before that, I wasn't available for anything. Like my animal body needed to move it through.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. People who are learning to move anger, a lot of times we suggest that you have some props around, some pillows. For years, I used a tennis racket. I liked it with the cover on, and I could hit the pillows with a tennis racket. I liked it because it made a loud sound. And then I had a wiffle ball bat that I taped the handle with duct tape, and I would beat the shit out of cushions. Because I was, especially as I was doing deep work around stuff that I had rage about, rage. And it would express and express and express. Yeah. Thank you, Erica. That's beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah, I saw somebody type messy. If you want to be fully alive, you got to get comfortable with messy. And most of us are not comfortable with messy. And around anger, for example, most of us have a relationship with anger from our upbringing where when somebody got angry, somebody got hurt, right? Somebody got abused, aggressed against, or somebody hurt themselves when they got angry. So developing a friendly relationship with anger is, can I get angry and not need to hurt myself or somebody else or possessions that matter to me? You notice when Erica just flowed anger, nobody here got hurt. Her room is still intact. Your body, I assume, is okay. And the energy just flowed. So can I flow feelings and not need to be destructive with them in a negative way? There's a beautiful side to destruction as well. Go ahead, Grace.
I did see recently that somebody had designed a space where you could go and you would get a pile of china, like old dishes and things, and you got to just throw and break all the stuff. So if you do need that, if it's that level and you do want to be destructive, there are friendly ways to set that up.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, people are definitely, yeah, those examples are so helpful. I love that, Grace. So Eugene is asking, and this is a common one that I imagine others are sharing, especially after my expression is, he's saying, my fear is that what if it gets bigger and moving it through brings up more?
Okay, here's what I want to say about that. One of my mentors, Hale Dwoskin, who I love so much, talks about these things being like plates in the plate stacking thing at the cafeteria. If you've ever been to cafeteria, there's that, or in college cafeteria. So one plate is on top, you take that plate and the next plate pops up and there might be 100 plates there. Here's all we're supporting ourselves to do is just take the first plate. So the current feeling that's here, just take that. Move, breathe, vocalize, match that, let it release through. Then we say that wave will go through. And then here's the good news. Quite often there's another plate. This is what the question's pointing at. Great. So after the first one goes through, you're available to the next plate. And then the next plate and the next plate. Now, I want to say two things. Most of us are terrified to feel our feelings because we believe there are an infinite number of plates. So it's not uncommon at all. This is what I believed. And I was with a group yesterday and somebody said it. I'm afraid that if I let my sadness show up, I'll start crying and I'll never stop crying. That's typical. People say, I'm afraid that if I let myself be as angry as I am, I will become a rageful, homicidal killer. That's typical. I'm afraid that if I let myself be as scared as I am, I'll be paralyzed in terror for the rest of my life. If I let myself feel my sexual feelings all the way through, I'll become a predator. I'll want to fuck or be fucked by everybody on the planet. These are core fears that live at the bottom of feelings. So two things I want to say. If you do what we're talking about, feel the next plate, and then just wait, see if there's another one, and be patient and gentle and let the body lead the way. You'll rarely, if ever, get overwhelmed by a feeling. If you do, get some support. Second, and I want to promise you this, the stack is not infinite. But a lot of you have a stack because you've never felt all your feelings. If you decide to commit to commitment number 3, I commit to feel my feelings all the way through. They come, I locate them, I move, breathe, and vocalize, they leave, and I get the wisdom. If you commit to that, eventually, and in my experience, it's not years, it's more like weeks and months, the stack can be felt all the way through. Now, often this is a stack of feelings that have accumulated in the body from the past. Now, here's the good news. They can be felt all the way through. And once they are felt all the way through, here's what you get. You get to be available to this moment. You don't keep importing your past and projecting it onto the moment. This is emotional liberation. You're free to feel what's here now without relating to everything through the emotional grid of your unfinished past. And gang, that is aliveness. That is liberation.
I have a really quick, I'll make it a quick story about that, the plates. So I really fell in love with my husband at a certain point, a couple of years in. We went on vacation. He asked me to marry him. I was so happy. I was in so much joy. The next day I woke up, I was in rage. I was having so much rage and I didn't understand why. And I was trying to sort it out. I was trying to figure it out. I was trying to solve it and I could not get out of it. And so I remembered the plates and I went like, okay, rage is here. So I just said, I don't know what's going on, but I have so much rage. And we had access to a little swimming pool. And I said, will you get in the water with me so I can just like rage on you, but it'll be a safe space. So he said, sure, I'll do that. So we got in the water and I would like take a big breath. I would go under the water and I would scream with the most rage I could come up with. And I would push on him. And then I would come up for air. And then I would go down in the water and I would do it again. And I did that a few times and I let the rage move through. And then what came was tears, so just tears and tears and tears. And what I realized underneath was I was so scared because I was opening my heart wider than I ever had before. And I just was so afraid, like now my heart can really get broken because I'm really letting myself say yes to falling in love. And so it was such, for me, that was great learning about, okay, I don't have to figure this out. I just have to follow the breadcrumbs of the feelings and trust that they will take me to the truth.
Oh, and Grace, you're pointing at something really wonderful there. You're in a relationship where you are both committed to feeling your own feelings all the way through to completion and being a space where the other can feel their feelings all the way through to completion. And this is what we see high-performing teams have a co-commitment around that. Deeply intimate partnerships have a co-commitment around that. So this morning, I was expressing to Debbie, and I had some anger coming up, and I was expressing it. And she said, okay, got it. I said, hold on, I'm not done fully matching that yet. She said, oh, great, keep going. So I went further in matching my anger, and she just held space. She didn't try to fix me, correct me, improve me, change me. She didn't view anger as a bad or dangerous thing. She just held space while I got to feel my feeling all the way through to completion. So again, we're talking about first emotional literacy and then emotional intelligence and then emotional liberation, both at the individual level, then at the relational level, and then at the community level. This is a big deal as what we're pointing at for the possibility of humanity, gang. Okay.
How about
Does
your
any-
question, Jim? You ready?
Okay.
Or
Yeah, you know what I'm thinking here is, how about if we do this? Does anybody here right now have a feeling they're feeling that we could coach you through how to feel your feeling all the way through to completion? So we actually don't care why you're upset. Don't worry about that. But you've got a feeling that's here. It could be anger, sadness, fear, joy, or sexual creative energy. It doesn't matter. Does anybody have a feeling here right now that we could support you to feel all the way through? Erica, if you could pick somebody.
Yeah, you can put, if you want to volunteer, go ahead and put your name in the chat. Reminder, this is being recorded for the group and your vulnerability is a gift. Everyone's feeling very peaceful, it seems.
Wow. I see Rachel just said
Yes.
she'll.
Yes.
All right. Rachel, are you here?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. Okay, great. So let's just get present here for a second. Yeah. Beautiful. So, Rachel, what feeling is here now?
I feel a few of them. There's anger, there's fear, and there's some sadness too. And
Okay.
I think the anger is probably the loudest.
Okay, great. So let's start with the anger. Good. So feel into your body. Where's the anger in the body?
There's tightness in my jaw.
Yeah.
And kind of a clenching in my belly.
Yeah.
And my fists. And behind my shoulder blades. Pushy feeling.
Great, great. So to begin with, and maybe some heat. So to begin with, check and see, would you be willing to just let your body have its experience? Would you be willing to just let those sensations be here in the jaw, the fists, the shoulders?
Yeah.
Just as best you can, just see if you can just open and allow the sensations to do whatever they want to do. You're not trying to get rid of them. Yeah, you're just letting the body feel, experience. Great. Yeah, so you're just allowing. Beautiful.
I'm noticing my hands are wanting to push on my legs.
Okay, great. So now we're going to say, would you go ahead and let your hands push? So just let them push as much as they want to push. Yeah. And if a sound wants to come out, just let it come out. Yeah. Good. Yeah. That's beautiful. Now just check. All you're doing is checking with the body. Again, you're not trying to get rid of these sensations. Now you're just noticing them again. What's here now in terms of sensations in around the body?
Yeah, as soon as I was making sounds, it moved pretty quickly into like a squeezy in my chest and the tears behind my eyes.
Yeah.
Sadness.
Yeah. So just see if you'd be willing to let the chest squeeze and see if you'd be willing to let the wetness in the eyes just come. Yeah.
Curling.
Great. Just let the body curl up. Even if you need to change posture, just let the body do what it needs to do. Yeah. 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 Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so beautiful. Yeah, and then just allowing all that. These are just waves of feeling, just waves of energy. And then just let us know, Rachel, what's here now.
noticed my body wanted to open up more again. And
Uh-huh.
I'm noticing mostly kind of a burning in my belly.
Ah, beautiful. Yeah, so tune into that burning in the belly. Yeah. And again, just see if you could kind of open, yeah, and let the belly burn. Yeah.
That one feels like fear now.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you were right. You got them all stacked in there. Yeah, so just let the belly be as scared as it is. Yeah. 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 Great. And then what's here now? Great.
Moved right back into my chest, like again, kind of this spreading pressure.
Yeah, pressure spreading in the chest. Yeah. So you know this. I just want to say for everybody else, these are just waves. The first wave feels like anger. The second wave feels like sadness. The third wave feels like fear. And now there's a little more sadness. So you're just opening to let the body receive the waves. And again, you know this, Rachel. I just want to say for everybody, you don't need to be in a hurry. And you don't need to do it all right now. You can take a little break. Yeah, yeah. There's been some flow. Yeah. And now, in the midst of the flow, check and see, can you also sense the space, the peace that's here while the flow is occurring?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, what we'll all discover is those feelings, anger, sadness, and fear, the ones you had, are occurring in and on peace. It's always here too. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if I were working with Rachel Lamore, I just want to stay with what's next. And we just keep riding the waves. And at some point, I might say, now just open and see, is there anything that this life force is wanting you to see or know, experience? And you don't have to figure it out. You just open to the wisdom and see if there's anything here, any information that's coming through the body. This is body intelligence. Yeah. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Okay. Gang, that's a great example of feeling feelings. They come, she locates them in her body, she breathes, she moves. Notice how she moves. She wanted to push with her hands, then she wanted to curl up. She vocalizes, makes some sounds, and they just go through. Now, in most places, we'd be trying to get rid of them. We would view feelings as a problem and we would try to fix them. We'd be saying, why are you angry, Rachel? Why are you scared? You shouldn't be scared. There's nothing to be scared of. Why are you saying, oh, sweetie, it'll be okay? And we try to get rid of that, which is, in our judgment, the exact opposite of the direction we want to move. I so trust Rachel's system that as she just feels these things and allows life to have her, she'll be held in love, by love, as love, and everything will just flow into aliveness. That's the possibility. And then as her partner in this practice, I get to support her. And by the way, while she's having feelings, I'm having feelings because we have these mirroring neurons. And that's part of being in relationship with other human beings. Many of you just watching Rachel were having feelings. So that's what it means to feel a feeling all the way through. Beautiful.
One of the things Rachel did really well was she really matched her experience very well with her movement and her sound. Now, for some people, you might like do that and find you didn't like, you may not come through the other side and go, oh, I feel like more of that space Jim is talking about. And that may be because you didn't quite match it, if we go back to that congruence idea. So you just may need to go through the process again. And if you're sitting with someone who is expressing, you can often feel whether they matched it or not. Like, it's very easy to tell. Like, if somebody's really angry, say, and they go, I'm so angry, and they make a sound like, you can tell, like, was that matching the experience of anger really, or is there any more than that? So you can support people if you feel like they're not quite getting there. And sometimes people just have to move through their awkwardness about making a weird sound or a funny movement or something like that. But almost always, when you do match it appropriately, like you give it the experience that actually is there, you will go into that feeling of either the flow to the next space or the spaciousness.
So I'm aware we only have like 7 minutes left. I wasn't really paying much attention to time. Probably not enough time to go back into a breakout, Erica? So any final comments or questions? By the way, here'd be, if you want to practice with this week, a real simple practice is just set up a reminder to ask you on a regular basis, what feeling is here now? And, we've talked before about Mind Jogger or Randomly Remind Me, these two apps that we love. And you can set your iPhone up to ask you 3, 5, 7 times a day, what feeling is here? And you just say, okay, what feeling is here? Sadness. Second question, where is it in the body? If that's all you did was ask, what feeling is here? Where is it in the body? And then if you want a bonus one, what are the bits doing? Popping, twisting, pulsing. That's it. Just what's here? Where is it? What are they doing? And by the way, I saw sexual feelings come up again. Sexual feelings are so important, but they're exactly the same. Remember, we've kind of pointed out that anger tends to show up in the anger zone, which starts at the top of the head, goes down the back of the neck, radiates out the shoulders into the fists. It's in the jaw, and it's often rage is in the pelvic floor. Sadness tends to be in the chest, up the front of the neck, flushing in the front of the face, and tears in the eyes. Fear often, not always, is in the belly. Joy is like an effervescence, bubbliness often that pervades the whole body. And generally, but not always, joy has an upward energy. Put 80,000 football fans in a stadium and have their team score the winning touchdown and watch what almost everybody in the stadium does. It stands up, raises its arms, and screams. That's joy. Okay, gang, here's the pop quiz. Where does sexual energy show up in the body? Well, if you're saying the erogenous zones, good on you. That's often where they start. So what does it mean to feel a sexual feeling all the way through? Well, it means, for example, that your genitals are tingling, or there's moisture in some of your orifices. There's an energy that's starting often in the erogenous zones. So what does it mean to feel a sexual feeling all the way through? Just do exactly what Rachel did. Where's the sensation? Tingling in my penis, my balls. Great. Can I just let them tingle? Yeah. Can I just let them do what they're doing all the way through? And it releases all the way through. We get in trouble with sexual energy like we do with anger. If I think you caused my anger and I'm below the line, then I'm going to get angry at you. Here's where we are so goofed up around sexual energy because we don't understand commitment number one, that you're the source of your experience. If I look over there at Erica right now, which I can see Erica on my screen, and I start thinking, God, she looks beautiful. She's such a feminine, radiant being. I like the hair, the way it's falling on her neck. Wouldn't take long before I could start to feel some sexual feelings. Gay Hendricks, my mentor, used to say, if you're a fully alive being, if you stand next to a eucalyptus bush, you'll feel sexual feelings. We're wired to feel them. Okay, so now let's say I start feeling feelings. Now here's where, from below the line, listen carefully, I think that Erica is the cause of my experience. From there, when I'm below the line with sexual feelings, I want to have Erica. I objectify Erica. Lust kicks in and I want to possess that. That's sexual energy below the line. Sexual energy above the line is I'm causing my sexual flow, not Erica. I'm the source of it, the experience of it, and the expression of it. Then from above the line, I can use my sexual energy to do what sexual energy is here to do, which is create, connect. Now, if Eric and I were committed to exploring and expressing, I could say, hey, Eric, I just want you to know I'm having some sexual feelings over here, and I want you to know me. Great. She doesn't take it personally. She doesn't think she's the cause of it any more than if I said, I'm angering myself. She would just want to know me. The problem is that we are so terrified of sexual energy because we don't know how to have it in healthy, whole, and healing ways. Because most of us experience sexual energy as horribly offline. And people got hurt, abused, used. So therefore, we've repressed like crazy and cut off our connection to creative flow. So I saw 3 or 4 questions about sexual energy. There you go. There's a little bit about that. Okay. Grace, Erica, anything you want to say before I read a final poem?
Tracy?
Well, if anybody, I was just thinking in terms of how to practice. Like one of the things Jim said was go ahead and go through the feelings practice. I know some people, like we talked about, maybe zeroing in on the feeling you are the most averse to or the least familiar with. And I could just say like, so if you wanted to explore anger, I would say let yourself over this week have a tantrum. Go get on your bed and just have a little tantrum on the bed for 1 minute. If you want to explore sadness, because that's not one of yours, then you might go and like look and find some touching, moving YouTube videos or something that can move you to tears and let yourself just experience some tears. If you are not as familiar with fear, you might let yourself actually look at something in the media or in the political realm right now that really scares you. And from a place of presence, see if you could just let yourself experience the fear. And there's lots of other ways, but so finding some fun ways to be able to play with your feelings. And sometimes that will be like, you kind of make it up, like you act it out a little bit, play with, it may not feel natural at first. So just letting yourself explore, even acting with your feelings in the beginning to get them going.
Yeah, and be kind to yourself, like Jim did with Rachel. Just go, trust your body to know when it's time to pause. Like all the wisdom you need is there, including how it wants to unfold for you. You can't do it wrong.
Okay, I want to read Rumi's poem, The Guest House. Many of you know this, but it's so perfect to end with this. The Guest House goes like this. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. That's good. Rumi the Guest House. All right, you beautiful beings. You want to unmute people and let people say goodbye? And maybe we'll hang out. I'll hang out for a few minutes like we did before, an after party for a few minutes if people want to hang out and comment or ask questions. Maybe Grace and Erica, you can hang out. If not, that's great. Okay.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Rachel. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
So those of you who are hanging out, let's just leave everybody unmuted. Does anybody have any comments or anything they want to express or get supported around?
I have a question about like feeling creative energy. Like if you just feel, is that just a mix of joy, but then also sexual energy? If you're not feeling that from your erogenous zones, but you're just feeling like that feeling of being in the flow state and empowered, that's where I'm a little confused. Is that then the sexual energy, or is it just joy? I don't understand.
Yeah, great question, Olivia. First of all, I said that often when you're beginning to learn this, sexual energy begins in the erogenous zones, but it circulates over the whole body. So once you start to develop a friendly relationship with it, you start to notice it moving all over the whole body. And sometimes joy flows right along next to it. And then what comes forward, the product, is the impulse to create. It could be create by having a new conversation, create by writing your next blog post, create by doing some programming, create. All of a sudden you can just feel an energetic desire to create and connect. Sexual energy is also the energy of create, connect. Yeah, so it's both of those that brings forward into the world. Is that probably matches what you're talking about in terms of your experience when you're in creative flow?
Yes, and thank you. It's helpful to understand the root of that.
Yeah. You know, there was this great scene in that movie, Broadcast News, with Holly Hunter and I forget who the guy was. But they're working together. I love it because this often happens in the workplace. A lot of times in the workplace, when we're in highly creative environments, what comes up is loads of sexual energy. William Hurt, I think, and Holly Hunter. And there's this one moment when they've been in this creative flow, and then all of a sudden they get it. It's like, whoa, geez, you know, like we're just wanting to fuck our brains out with creativity right here. I worked with one of the leaders of one of the largest ad agencies in the world, and he was just learning this, and he goes, oh my God, I get it. He said, I work around thousands of creatives all over the world. And one of the things that goes on in our culture is people are just having sex like crazy because, one of the reasons, they don't know how to be in creative flow and not make it personal about the other person and not have clean boundaries. If you're going to start to flow your sexual energy, you need to really develop good boundaries. Because if you start to feel your sexual aliveness it's going to be incredibly attractive to other beings. And those who are not mature with a wise, discerning capability around sexual energy are like bees to flowers, and you've got to have good boundaries. That's why you need to be very wise about how much you flow your sexual energy outwardly. You got to make sure that you're in environments that you feel safe and where you've got really good boundaries. This is a big deal. One of the reasons we chose to leave this in the book, and we got a lot of heat to take it out of the book, was because so many people in the workplace are saying, we need more creativity, we need more creativity, we need more creativity. But we're legislating sexual energy out of the workplace. It won't work. So what we need, the environment of the future will welcome sexual energy with unbelievably clear boundaries that will allow for full-on creativity. But we're not, in most places, we're not there yet, gang. We might be 100 years away from that. But that's where we're headed. So you might as well be way showers.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other comments you guys want to make or questions?
Yeah, I have a
Jim.
question. Sorry. If you could help me, like, I think my question relates to, I have a lot of problems. I think when I have really strong feelings in companion with someone else, to let that show. And I make up the story, well, that person isn't trained in above the line, below the line. I can't talk openly, but I think it's more about me actually, and that I'm really not used to just show that, also deal with the reaction. Don't worry what that other person will think of me. And in the moment, it's hard to deal with that. And I just wanted to ask if you can, if you have an input or like something to say.
Grace, Erica, do you want to respond to that?
Dominique, do you mean that you have a hard time with people's reactions to your feelings, or you have a hard time actually expressing them to someone?
Probably both, but first it's expressing them. Like I don't even get there. I would just rather not express it, even if I have a really strong feeling. And of course that shows in some way also, like it's not that the other person wouldn't notice that I have feelings.
So you're wanting support in how you could do that, how you could start to express more what is actually happening?
Yes.
Well, I remember when I first started this work, I thought I'd be really good at it because I had been doing so many different practices and yoga and all kinds of things. And I thought, wow, this is going to be easy for me. And then I really got humbled because I realized that I wasn't actually good at knowing not only what I was feeling, but then expressing it out loud. So I had to really give myself permission to be like a baby, like a toddler with it, and make a lot of mistakes and kind of do it wrong and maybe express weirdly. So if you could give yourself permission to just like, don't be an expert, like you can just screw it up, you know, you can you know, and have somebody have a reaction and just like have that be okay. I think for the first couple of years when I was playing with this, I messed up a lot. I kind of didn't always match the right emotion, but each time I risked it, I learned a little bit more about how to, you know, what was there and how to do it, and felt their response. So if you could just take, you know, I would say give yourself some room to be a little messy right now.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question too, Dominic. Are you able to express your feelings alone in a room by yourself?
It's a lot easier, yes.
You are.
So here's a couple of baby steps. Keep expressing alone, and then find one person who's willing to witness you while you express. So you're actually asking somebody. I'm trying to learn about expressing my feelings all the way through to completion while having somebody watch me. Would you be willing just to watch me? Like, I'm looking at people who are just left on our screen here. I can see 5 people right now who could be fabulous space holders for you. If you just said, they don't even have to know you. Here's what I'm saying, Dominic. They don't even have to know you. You just say, would you just let me do this with another person watching? Because you probably haven't had a lot of experience with that. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then after you, like Grace is saying, you toddle at that for a while, like a little toddler. Then in a couple of relationships that matter to you, you could say, I'm wanting to grow in my ability to feel my feelings in relationships. Would you be willing to do that with me? So you talk about creating a co-commitment, and then that could look like once a week you say, let's practice feelings. Just start with something real simple. What's a feeling that's here now? And could I feel it while you witness me? Just like I witnessed Rachel. I didn't do it. I just said, where is it? Would you feel it? Could you allow it? Just do that. And then change roles. So you're taking these little baby steps, which will feel safe to you as you learn to be a feeling being in the context of community. Start gently. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you'd recommend to start with someone who has experience before doing it with someone close who maybe doesn't have the background.
Yeah. And one of the keys to the person having experience is they need to be more comfortable feeling their feelings than you are feeling yours. They don't need to be perfect. They just need to have gone further with anger than you've gone. Because if you try to do this with somebody who's real blocked around their anger and you start to go, whether they shut you down, actually, they'll shut you down energetically because they're scared of going there. That makes sense?
Yes. Thank you.
I see Leah Perlman typing. Leah, what are you typing right now? Probably some wisdom, I'm imagining. There you go.
Oh, thank you, Leah.
Leah's a queen of
That's
feelings.
I do have a lot of experience, but I also have a question for you, Jim.
Yeah.
So one thing I heard recently, and it was related to Enneagram, was on an Enneagram panel. It said most of the Enneagram types have trouble feeling their feelings, whereas Enneagram 4s, which I identify as, have trouble letting them go. And so I've been really with that this week. Like, I am so good at being with feelings, and then there's some way I'm getting stuck. And so I just wonder if you could say anything about what I might be missing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's what comes up for me. Start by making sure that you're making the distinction between thought generated and body centered. So as a 4, you can get the thought of longing or missing, regretting, reminiscing. You can get that energy going with pictures and sounds, and then the feeling starts to come up. So first and foremost, make sure you stay in your body. And then let the body guide you. Now, the key here, I think, is just be willing to let the sensations be as they are and let the waves complete without fueling them with fresh thoughts. If thoughts arise, that's perfectly normal. Just let them relax, let them evaporate back into the nothingness from which they came, and then stay in the body as the body does what it does. So what I'm looking for here is for you to have a real experience of the trough in between the wave, because 4s love the wave. That's one of your superpowers and one of the blind spots. So it's starting to enjoy the trough as much as you enjoy the wave. Enjoy the emptiness as much as the fullness. Enjoy the low vibration as much as the intense one. You know, the difference between peace and equanimity. Equanimity welcomes it all. Peace is a preference for one thing. Well, for fours, it's becoming equanimous with both intensity and emptiness. That making sense, Leah? You've done so much in this. That resonating?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's helpful. I can see I was looking to feel less emotion instead of looking for space or peace or
Yes.
just looking, yeah, for the period at the end of the sentence.
Yes. Well, you could actually, next time you have a big wave coming and you want to practice, you could actually bring your attention oscillating back and forth between the intensity of the big emotion, pressure in the chest, wetness in the eyes, roiling in the belly. So get in, feel it all, and then move your attention to some place in the body where there's emptiness. The left big toe, the left knee, and oscillate back and forth so that you can practice being with both. You're not denying the intensity. Love that, let it come. But don't over-index on that. Play with the oscillation between both, because what you are is available to all, supporting all. That might be a fun practice for you.
Yeah, I noticed when my mind said, "You mean check for a boring part?" And I'm like, might be the problem.
Yeah, that might be.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Hey, Leah, I have another thought that relates to Enneagram. Are you open? I know you asked Jim, so I don't.
Please.
I was thinking about the line, Enneagram line 4 to 1. And I know if you guys don't know Enneagram, I'm sorry. But is that I just get this sense of you also just connecting into the integrity around emotions and a certain pristineness that Enneagram 1s can be so brilliant at. And I know Leah very well, and that I see in you so strongly. And like that, just Jim was talking about thought generated versus body generated, just like this pristine integrity around like and discrimination there that I actually think you deeply get and is a superpower of yours.
It's awesome. That's a fun challenge. Thank you, Erica.
One more comment or question, then I'm going to choose to drop off and get ready for my next one. Karina, did you raise your hand?
Yes, I did. Thank you. So what I've noticed that you first name emotion and then search in your body. But I have difficulties to name it in the first place. You know, I grew up in the environment, in the community, in my family, that when there was like just one emotion, is emotion. So I don't know what is that. Is it sadness or anger or joy, whatever? So is it the reversed way to first locate sensations in your body, and they might not be so obvious. They might not be drama, I feel it. No, just very subtle. And then transform into, oh yeah, oh, that was anger. So that's, what would you like to, what would you say on that?
Grace, you look like you were nodding and have something to say there.
Well, I was just thinking of the body model we have. I think it's in the book, yes?
It is in the book.
In the book. So it's got the zones, like where the feelings are felt most often. And it's not totally accurate, but for most people, it's a good beginning reference point. So for me, like when I was first starting to try to feel what I was feeling, often I was feeling anger, but I would cry instead. But when I knew about the zones, I started to go, oh, the zones of anger are my shoulders and my jaw and my head. And that's where I'm feeling more sensation than in my chest or behind my eyes. So I started to go, okay, maybe because I'm feeling it here, this is the feeling I'm having. So I started by really looking at that model, the body map, and just going, okay, here's the zones where they're mostly felt. So let me use that as a map. And when I'm having a feeling, I'll go, where do I feel the most sensation in the body? Not what is the sensation, just where do I feel it most? And use that as a pointer. so that I could go, oh, okay, I have a lot of sensation here. So maybe I'm angry. And then I would just go and explore to see if then I would find, yeah, actually it's true, I was. So I used the map at first because I had put feelings on top of feelings. And so I couldn't always identify it either. So I would use that as a go-to.
And those sensations are in our biology of human beings, so that usually anger, regardless of, of race and culture, etc., it's here. And I don't know, joy, it's in some upward energy. So that's biological. It's not.
Yes, it's fairly biological. We drew that from a lot of people's research. Daniel Goleman did a lot of research. It's fairly biological. Of course, there are going to be deviations. So it's not exact science. So I would start, eventually you'll learn your own places where you feel it. But it is, regardless of culture across the board, we found that those zones of the body are fairly accurate.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right, you beautiful beings. Great hanging out with all of you, and enjoy your emotions this week, or not. Just have whatever experience you have, and next week we'll dive into candor together.
Thank you so much for having me, Jim, this week.
Grace.
Everybody.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank
having
you.
Grace this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.
Bye, everybody.